Chapter 24, Part 1 of East Lynne. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Anna Simon. East Lynne by Mrs. Henry Wood. Chapter 24. Richard Hare at Mr. Dill's window. Part 1. Bright was the moon on that genial Monday night. Bright was the evening star, as they shone upon a solitary wayfarer, who walked on the shady side of the road with his head down, as though he did not care to court observation. A labourer apparently, for he wore a smock frock and had hobnails in his shoes, but his whiskers were large and black, quite hiding the lower part of his face, and his broad-brimmed wide-awake came far over his brows. He drew near the dwelling of Richard Hare, Esquire, plunged rapidly over some palings, after looking well to the right and to the left, into a field, and thence over the side wall into Mr. Hare's garden, where he remained amidst the thick trees. Now, by some mischievous spirit of intuition or contrariety, Justice Hare was spending this evening at home, a thing he did not do once in 6 months, unless he had friends with him. Things in real life do mostly go by the rules of contrary, as children say in their play, holding the corners of the handkerchief. Here we go round and round by the rules of contrary. If I tell you to hold fast, you must lose. If I tell you to lose, you must hold fast. Just so in the play of life. When we want people to hold fast, they lose, and when we want them to lose, they hold fast. Barbara, anxious, troubled, worn out almost with the suspense of looking and watching for her brother, feeling a feverish expectation that night would bring him, but so had she felt for the 2 or 3 nights past, would have given her hand for her father to go out. But no, things were going by the rule of contrary. There sat the stern justice in full view of the garden and the grove, his chair drawn precisely in front of the window, his wig awry and a long pipe in his mouth. "Are you not going out, Richard?" Mrs. Hare ventured to say. "No." "Mamma, shall I ring for the shutters to be closed?" asked Barbara by and by. "Shutters closed?" said the justice. "Who'd shut out this bright moon? You've got the lamp at the far end of the room, young lady, and can go to it." Barbara ejaculated an inward prayer for patience, for safety of Richard if he did come, and waited on, watching the grove in the distance. It came, the signal. Her quick eye caught it, a movement as if some person or thing had stepped out beyond the trees and stepped back again. Barbara's face turned white and her lips dry. "I am so hot!" she exclaimed, in her confused eagerness for an excuse. "I must take a turn in the garden." She stole out, throwing a dark shawl over her shoulders that might render her less conspicuous to the justice, and her dress that evening was a dark silk. She did not dare to stand still when she reached the trees, or to penetrate them, but she caught glimpses of Richard's face, and her heart ached at the change in it. It was white, thin, and full of care, and his hair, he told her, was turning grey. "Oh, Richard, darling, and I may not stop to talk to you," she wailed in a deep whisper. "Papa is at home, you see, of all the nights in the world." "Can't I see my mother?" "How can you? You must wait till tomorrow night." "I don't like waiting a second night, Barbara. There's danger in every inch of ground that this neighbourhood contains." "But you must wait, Richard, for reasons. That man who caused all the mischief, Thorn—" "Hang him!" gloomily interrupted Richard. "He is at West Lynne. At least there is a Thorn I and Mr. Carlyle believe to be the same, and we want you to see him." "Let me see him," panted Richard, whom the news appeared to agitate. "Let me see him, Barbara, I say." Barbara had passed on again, returning presently. "You know, Richard, I must keep moving, with papa's eyes there. He is a tall man, very good looking, very fond of dress and ornament, especially of diamonds." "That's he!" cried Richard eagerly. "Mr. Carlyle will contrive that you shall see him," she continued, stooping as if to tie her shoe. "Should it prove to be the same, perhaps nothing can be done, immediately done, toward clearing you, but it shall be a great point ascertained. Are you sure you should know him again?" "Sure? That I should know him?" uttered Richard Hare. "Should I know my own father? Should I know you? And are you not engraven on my heart in letters of blood, as is he? How and when am I to see him, Barbara?" "I can tell you nothing till I have seen Mr. Carlyle. Be here to morrow, as soon as ever the dusk will permit you. Perhaps Mr. Carlyle will contrive to bring him here, if—" The window was thrown open, and the stentorian voice of Justice Hare was heard from it. "Barbara, are you wandering about there to take cold? Come in. Come in, I say." "Oh, Richard, I am so sorry," she lingered to whisper. "But papa is sure to be out to morrow evening. He would not stay in 2 evenings running. Good night, dear." There must be no delay now, and the next day Barbara, braving comments, appeared once more at the office of Mr. Carlyle. Terribly did the rules of contrary seem in action just then. Mr. Carlyle was not in, and the clerks did not know when to expect him. He was gone out for some hours, they believed. "Mr. Dill," urged Barbara, as the old gentleman came to the door to greet her, "I must see him." "He will not be in till late in the afternoon, Miss Barbara. I expect him then. Is it anything I can do?" "No, no," sighed Barbara. At that moment Lady Isabel and her little girl passed in the chariot. She saw Barbara at her husband's door. What should she be doing there, unless paying him a visit? A slight, haughty bow to Barbara, a pleasant nod and smile to Mr. Dill, and the carriage bowled on. It was 4 o'clock before Barbara could see Mr. Carlyle, and communicated tidings that Richard had arrived. Mr. Carlyle held this seat and all underhand doings in a special abhorrence, yet he deemed that he was acting right, under the circumstances, in allowing Captain Thorn to be secretly seen by Richard Hare. In haste he arranged his plans. It was the evening of his own dinner engagement at Mrs. Jefferson's, but that he must give up. Telling Barbara to dispatch Richard to his office as soon as he should make his appearance at the Grove, and to urge him to come boldly and not fear, for none would know him in his disguise, he wrote a hurried note to Thorn, requesting him also to be at his office at 8 o'clock that evening, as he had something to communicate to him. The latter plea was no fiction, for he had received an important communication that morning relative to the business on which Captain Thorn had consulted him, and his own absence from the office in the day had alone prevented his sending for him earlier. Other matters were calling the attention of Mr. Carlyle, and it was 5 o'clock ere he departed for East Lynne. He would not have gone so early, but that he must inform his wife of his inability to keep his dinner engagement. Mr. Carlyle was one who never hesitated to sacrifice personal gratification to friendship or to business. The chariot was at the door, and Lady Isabel dressed and waiting for him in her dressing-room. "Did you forget that the Jeffersons dined at 6?" was her greeting. "No, Isabel, but it was impossible for me to get here before, and I should not have come so soon but to tell you that I cannot accompany you. You must make my excuses to Mrs. Jefferson." A pause. Strange thoughts were running through Lady Isabel's mind. "Why so?" she inquired. "Some business has arisen, which I am compelled to attend to this evening. As soon as I have snatched a bit of dinner at home, I must hasten back to the office." Was he making this excuse to spend the hours of her absence with Barbara Hare? The idea that it was so took firm possession of her mind, and remained there. Her face expressed a variety of feelings, the most prominent that of resentment. Mr. Carlyle saw it. "You must not be vexed, Isabel. I assure you it is no fault of mine. It is important private business which cannot be put off, and which I cannot delegate to Dill. I am sorry it should have so happened." "You never return to the office in the evening?" she remarked, with pale lips. "No, because if anything arises to take us there after hours, Dill officiates, but the business to-night must be done by myself." Another pause. Lady Isabel suddenly broke it. "Shall you join us later in the evening?" "I believe I shall not be able to do so." She drew her light shawl round her shoulders and swept down the staircase. Mr. Carlyle followed to place her in the carriage. When he said farewell, she never answered, but looked out straight before her with a stony look. "What time, my lady?" inquired the footman, as he alighted at Mrs. Jefferson's. "Early. 9:30." A little before 8 o'clock, Richard Hare, in his smock frock and his slouching hat and his false whiskers, rang dubiously at the outer door of Mr. Carlyle's office. The gentleman instantly opened it. He was quite alone. "Come in, Richard," said he, grasping his hand. "Did you meet any whom you knew?" "I never looked at whom I met, sir," was the reply. "I thought that if I looked at people they might look at me, so I came straight ahead with my eyes before me. How the place has altered! There's a new brick house on the corner where old Morgan's shop used to stand." "That's the new police station. West Lynne, I assure you, is becoming grand in public buildings. And how have you been, Richard?" "Ailing and wretched," answered Richard Hare. "How can it be otherwise, Mr. Carlyle, with so false an accusation attached to me, and working like a slave as I have to do?" "You may take off the disfiguring hat, Richard. No one is here." Richard slowly heaved it from his brows, and his fair face, so like his mother's, was disclosed. But the moment he was uncovered he turned shrinkingly towards the entrance door. "If anyone should come in, sir?" "Impossible," replied Mr. Carlyle. "The front door is fast, and the office is supposed to be empty at this hour." "For if I should be seen and recognized, it might come to hanging, you know, sir. You are expecting that cursed Thorn here, Barbara told me." "Directly," replied Mr. Carlyle, observing the mode of addressing him "sir." It spoke plainly of the scale of society in which Richard had been mixing, that he was with those who said it habitually, nay, that he used it habitually himself. "From your description of the Lieutenant Thorn who destroyed Halliburton, we believe this Captain Thorn to be the same man," pursued Mr. Carlyle. "In person he appears to tally exactly, and I have ascertained that a few years ago he was at Deal at Swainson, and got into some sort of scrape. He's in John Herbert's regiment, and is here with him on a visit." "But what an idiot he must be to venture here!" uttered Richard. "Here, of all places in the world!" "He counts, no doubt, on not being known. So far as I can find out, Richard, nobody here did know him, save you and Afy. I shall put you in Mr. Dill's room. You may remember the little window in it, and from thence you can take a full view of Thorn, whom I shall keep in the front office. You are sure you would recognize him at this distance of time?" "I should know him if it were 50 years to come. I should know him were he disguised as I am disguised. We cannot," Richard sank his voice, "forget a man who has been the object of our frenzied jealousy." "What has brought you to East Lynne again, Richard? Any particular object?" "Chiefly a hankering within me that I could not get rid of," replied Richard. "It was not so much to see my mother and Barbara, though I did want that, especially since my illness, as that a feeling was within me that I could not rest away from it. So I said I'd risk it again, just for a day." "I thought you might possibly want some assistance, as before." "I do want that also," said Richard. "Not much. My illness has run me into debt, and if my mother can let me have a little, I shall be thankful." "I'm sure she will," answered Mr. Carlyle. "You shall have it from me to-night. What has been the matter with you?" "The beginning of it was a kick from a horse, sir. That was last winter, and it laid me up for 6 weeks. Then in the spring, after I got well and was at work again, I caught some sort of fever, and down again I was for 6 weeks. I have not been to say well since." "How is it you have never written or sent me your address?" "Because I dared not," answered Richard, timorously. "I should always be in fear. Not of you, Mr. Carlyle, but of its becoming known some way or other. The time is getting on, sir. Is that Thorn sure to come?" "He sent me word that he would in reply to my note. And there he is," uttered Mr. Carlyle, as a ring was heard at the bell. "Now, Richard, come this way. Bring your hat." Richard complied by putting his hat on his head, pulling it so low that it touched his nose. He felt himself safer in it. Mr. Carlyle showed him into Mr. Dill's room, and then turned the key upon him, and put it in his pocket. Whether this precautionary measure was intended to prevent any possibility of Captain Thorn's finding his way in, or of Richard's finding his way out, was best known to himself. Mr. Carlyle came to the front door, opened it, and admitted Captain Thorn. He brought him into the clerk's office, which was bright with gas, keeping him in conversation for a few minutes, standing, and then asking him to be seated, all in view of the little window. "I must beg your pardon for being late. Captain Thorn observed. "I am half an hour beyond the time you mentioned, but the Herberts had 2 or 3 friends at dinner, and I could not get away. I hope, Mr. Carlyle, you have not come to your office to-night purposely for me." "Business must be attended to," somewhat evasively answered Mr. Carlyle. "I have been out myself nearly all day. We received a communication from London this morning relative to your affair, and I am sorry to say anything but satisfactory. They will not wait." "But I am not liable, Mr. Carlyle, not liable in justice." "No, if what you tell me be correct. But justice and law are sometimes in opposition, Captain Thorn." Captain Thorn sat in perplexity. "They will not get me arrested here, will they?" "They would have done it, beyond doubt. But I have caused a letter to be written and dispatched to them, which must bring forth an answer before any violent proceedings are taken. That answer will be here the morning after tomorrow." "And what am I to do then?" "I think it is probable there may be a way of checkmating them. But I am not sure, Captain Thorn, that I can give my attention further to this affair." "I hope and trust you will," was the reply. "You have not forgotten that I told you at first I could not promise to do so," rejoined Mr. Carlyle. "You shall hear from me tomorrow. If I carry it on for you, I will then appoint an hour for you to be here on the following day. If not, why, I dare say you will find a solicitor as capable of assisting you as I am." "But why will you not? What is the reason?" "I cannot always give reasons for what I do," was the response. "You will hear from me tomorrow." He rose as he spoke. Captain Thorn also rose. Mr. Carlyle detained him yet a few moments, and then saw him out at the front door and fastened it. He returned and released Richard. The latter took off his hat as he advanced into the blaze of light. "Well, Richard, is it the same man?" "No, sir. Not in the least like him." Mr. Carlyle, though little given to emotion, felt a strange relief for Captain Thorn's sake. He had rarely seen one whom he could so little associate with the notion of a murderer as Captain Thorn, and he was a man who exceedingly won upon the regard. He would hardly help him out of his dilemma now. "Excepting that they are both tall, with nearly the same color of hair, there is no resemblance whatever between them," proceeded Richard. "Their faces, their figures, are as opposite as light is from dark. That other, in spite of his handsome features, had the expression at times of a demon, but this one's expression is the best part of his face. Hallijohn's murderer had a curious look here, sir." "Where?" questioned Mr. Carlyle, for Richard had only pointed to his face generally. "Well, I cannot say precisely where it lay, whether in the eyebrows or the eyes. I could not tell when I used to have him before me, but it was in one of them. Ah, Mr. Carlyle, I thought when Barbara told me Thorn was here it was too good news to be true. Depend upon it, he won't venture to West Lynne again. This man is no more like that other villain than you are like him." "Then, as that is set at rest, we had better be going, Richard. You have to see your mother, and she must be waiting in anxiety. How much money do you want?" £25 would do, but—" Richard stopped in hesitation. "But what?" asked Mr. Carlyle. "Speak out, Richard." "30 would be more welcome. 30 would put me at ease." "You shall take 30," said Mr. Carlyle, counting out the notes to him. "Now, will you walk with me to the Grove, or will you walk alone? I mean to see you there in safety." Richard thought he would prefer to walk alone. Everybody they met might be speaking to Mr. Carlyle. The latter inquired why he chose moonlight nights for his visits. "It is pleasanter for travelling, and had I chosen dark nights, Barbara could not have seen my signal from the trees," was the answer of Richard. They went out and proceeded unmolested to the house of Justice Hare. It was past 9 then. "I am so much obliged to you, Mr. Carlyle," whispered Richard as they walked up the path. "I wish I could help you more effectually, Richard, and clear up the mystery. Is Barbara on the watch? Yes, there's the door slowly opening." Richard stole across the hall and into the parlor to his mother. Barbara approached and softly whispered to Mr. Carlyle, standing just outside the portico. Her voice trembled with the suspense of what the answer might be. "Is it the same man, the same Thorn?" "No. Richard says this man bears no resemblance to the real one." "Oh," uttered Barbara, in her surprise and disappointment. "Not the same! And for the best part of poor Richard's evening to have been taken up for nothing." "Not quite nothing," said Mr. Carlyle. "The question is now set at rest." "Set at rest!" repeated Barbara. "It is left in more uncertainty than ever." "Set at rest so far as regards Captain Thorn, and whilst our suspicions were concentrated upon him, we thought not of looking to other quarters." When they entered the sitting room, Mrs. Hare was crying over Richard, and Richard was crying over her, but she seized the hand of Mr. Carlyle. "You have been very kind. I don't know whatever we should do without you. And I want to tax your kindness further. Has Barbara mentioned it?" "I could not talk in the hall, mamma. The servants might have overheard." "Mr. Hare is not well, and we terribly fear he will be home early in consequence. Otherwise we should have been quite safe until after 10, for he's gone to the Buck's Head, and they never leave, you know, till that hour is struck. Should he come in and see Richard Oh, I need not enlarge upon the consequences to you, Archibald. The very thought sends me into a shiver. Barbara and I have been discussing it all the evening, and we can only think of one plan. It is, that you will kindly stay in the garden near the gate, and, should he come in, stop him and keep him in conversation. Barbara will be with you, and will run in with the warning, and Richard can go inside the closet in the hall till Mr. Hare has entered and is safe in this room, and then he can make his escape. Will you do this, Archibald?" "Certainly I will." "I cannot part with him before 10 o'clock unless I am forced," she whispered, pressing Mr. Carlyle's hands in her earnest gratitude. "You don't know what it is, Archibald, to have a lost son home for an hour but once in 7 years. At 10 o'clock we will part." Mr. Carlyle and Barbara began to pace in the path in compliance with the wish of Mrs. Hare, keeping near the entrance gate. When they were turning the second time, Mr. Carlyle offered her his arm. It was an act of mere politeness. Barbara took it, and there they waited and waited, but the justice did not come. Punctually to the minute, half after 9, Lady Isabel's carriage arrived at Mrs. Jefferson's, and she came out immediately, a headache being the plea for her early departure. She had not far to go to reach East Lynne, about 2 miles, and it was a by-road nearly all the way. They could emerge into the open road if they pleased, but it was a trifle further. Suddenly a gentleman approached the carriage as it was bowling along, and waved his hand to the coachman to pull up. In spite of the glowing moonlight, Lady Isabel did not at first recognize him, for he wore a disfigured fur cap, the ears of which were tied over his ears and cheeks. It was Francis Levison. She put down the window. "I thought it must be your carriage. How early you are returning! Were you tired of your entertainers?" "Why, he knew what time my lady was returning," thought John to himself. "He asked me. A false sort of a chap that, I've a notion." "I came out for a midnight stroll, and have tired myself," he proceeded. "Will you take compassion on me, and give me a seat home?" She acquiesced. She could not do otherwise. The footman sprang from behind the door, and Francis Levison took his place beside Lady Isabel. "Take the high road," he put out his head to say to the coachman, and the man touched his hat. Which high road would cause them to pass Mr. Hare's. "I did not know you," she began, gathering herself into her own corner. "What ugly thing is that you have on? It is like a disguise." He was taking off the ugly thing as she spoke, and began to twirl it round his hand. "Disguise? Oh no, I have no creditors in the immediate neighbourhood of East Lynne." False as ever, it was worn as a disguise, and he knew it. "Is Mr. Carlyle at home?" she inquired. "No." Then, after a pause, "I expect he is more agreeably engaged." The tone, a most significant one, brought the tingling blood to the cheeks of Lady Isabel. She wished to preserve a dignified silence, and did for a few moments, but the jealous question broke out. "Engaged in what manner?" "As I came by Hare's house just now, I saw 2 people, a gentleman and a young lady, coupled lovingly together, enjoying a tête-à-tête by moonlight. Unless I am mistaken, he was the favoured individual whom you call lord and master." Lady Isabel almost gnashed her teeth. The jealous doubts which had been tormenting her all the evening were confirmed. That the man whom she hated, yes, in her blind anger she hated him then, should so impose upon her, should excuse himself by lies, lies base and false as he was, from accompanying her out, on purpose to pass the hours with Barbara Hare. Had she been alone in the carriage, a torrent of passion had probably escaped her. She leaned back, panting in her emotion, but hiding it from Captain Levison. As they came opposite to Justice Hare's, she deliberately bent forward and scanned the garden with eager eyes. There, in the bright moonlight, all too bright and clear, slowly paced arm in arm and drawn close to each other, her husband and Barbara Hare. With a choking sob that could no longer be controlled or hidden, Lady Isabel sunk back again. He, that bold, bad man, dared to put his arm around her, to draw her to his side, to whisper that his love was left to her, if another's was withdrawn. She was most assuredly out of her senses that night, or she never would have listened. A jealous woman is mad, an outraged woman is doubly mad, and the ill-fated Lady Isabel truly believed that every sacred feeling which ought to exist between man and wife was betrayed by Mr. Carlyle. "Be avenged on that false hound, Isabel. He was never worthy of you. Leave your life of misery, and come to happiness." In her bitter distress and wrath, she broke into a storm of sobs. Were they caused by passion against her husband, or by those bold and shameless words? Alas, alas! Francis Levison applied himself to soothe her with all the sweet and dangerous sophistry of his crafty nature. The minutes flew on. 10:15, now 10:15, and still Richard Hare lingered on with his mother, and still Mr. Carlyle and Barbara paced patiently the garden path. At 10:30 Richard came forth, after having taken his last farewell. Then came Barbara's tearful farewell, which Mr. Carlyle witnessed, and then a hard grasp of the gentleman's hand, and Richard plunged amidst the trees to depart the way he came. Chapter 24, Part 1.